because, basketball is a game of runs. And, we all know that. So when a team is up, maybe, goes on a 10-0 run and goes up 12, the lines really shift so fast. Giving like the team losing by 12, like that were supposed to be winning, they're already, +2, +5, +6, and then they come out of the timeout and then they score. So live betting the NBA is probably the best way to go. I'm not a big live better because at the end of the day, I like to give out my picks, before the game. So, people can't really hit your live bets. Oh, I did a live bet, but now the line has changed, 10 different, to 10 cents or something, and it changes the entire perspective of the play. So, live betting is definitely the best way to go in basketball. Just for me, for example, I like to have, pregame wagers to give out to all of my followers and subscribers. So at the end of the day, the NBA is just not or just basketball in general, it's just not the best place for me when it comes to helping, bettors make the best selections.
Yeah, and obviously it's tough there, but I think, looking at the MLB postseason, I think that's going to be tough to handicap too because there's no off days. So maybe people want to easily bet the Yankees in their series, but Garrett Cole is only going to pitch one time in a 5-game series because there's going to be 5 days in a row, unless, of course, he pitches game 1, and then you want to have him on 3 days rest in game 5. So that's something to keep in mind, especially with betting this postseason with the neutral site games. That's really going to be something to keep an eye on. Of course, all the players got to get acclimated to a time change. They're all going to, from the East Coast, they're going to be heading to the West Coast to play. And who knows what time the games are going to be on. They're going to break the routine because I'm sure the East Coast teams are going to have a 4 o'clock game on the West Coast so that it could be 7 p.m. prime time. So that's something to keep an eye on. But Jason, what are you most gonna watch here as we head into the postseason, and how will you determine which is the way to go with the bets? And then, do you have any sort of predictions how the playoffs are going to unravel and leading into the World Series? What's your World Series pick?
Yeah, so when you're looking at the MLB, you want to pick teams that have a deep pitching staff, a staff that really can do some damage, against different, hitters. And that's not just one or two guys. Like, for example, the Mets, and, I know we have a Mets fan in here. Like the Mets, for example, they have DeGrom, they have Vicente Lugo, but then it goes to Porcello, it goes to Peterson, goes to Waka, and those guys can't get the job done. So now you really need, in a 5-game series, for example, you need at least to know that there's an edge with 3 pitchers in that series going up against those other 3 pitchers, on the other side. So you want the best pitching possible. For example, the Indians, they have some really good pitching, but their offense is miserable. So like Shane Bieber, Carlos Carrasco, Aaron Savali, Zach Plesac, Tristan McKenzie, they have 5 pitchers that can really do damage in any series. So, let's say that Indians offense starts getting hot. The Indians have a great chance of moving on into the playoffs as long as they can get their hitting working. The thing is, like, they have Francisco Lindor, Cesar Hernandez, Jose Ramirez. These are all guys that can absolutely hit the crap out of the ball, but at the end of the day, they're just not doing it. But they also give good matchups, like Hernandez, Ramirez, Lindor, and a couple of the other guys in the Indians lineup. They're all switch hitters. They're just still not performing, even though they're switch hitters. So, they face lefties or they face righties. No matter what, the Indians will have good matchups. It's just a matter of can they get these hits and get clutch hits, which they haven't been able to do all season long. That's the question.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be interesting. And I think, what I heard the other day, Joe, is from Rob Manfred, he did some sort of webinar for a school, and he thinks the 16-team playoff is here to stay. Do you think that's something that, obviously has to be approved in a CBA, but do you think that's something the players will agree to? I know the owners will probably be in because there's more television money, people in the ballpark. I could see why he's thinking that's going to be here to stay. But outside of this season, I don't know if I personally like that idea because you are going to see teams each year getting into the playoffs that are under 500.
So I was watching. I'm sorry. Yeah. I was watching the Dodgers-Padres game yesterday, and I forgot which player said this, or I forgot which broadcaster said this, but a lot of people agreed with the expanded playoffs this year, and this year only just because of everything that was going on. And then, moving forward, everybody kind of likes the old model of doing things. So to quote our favorite, Vince McMahon, it's all about the money, right? It's always all about the money. And what do extra playoff games bring owners? Extra revenue, right? So in the end, it's just a financial decision. I don't know if it's really going to happen, but it's definitely discussions that they've had. And I'm sorry to have cut you off there, Jason.
Yeah, no problem. I think it's interesting. When we talk about this, like obviously there's a lot more revenue that will come on, with expanded playoffs. But also, I think we're seeing that the DH is probably here to stay as well. And with extra innings, we're putting guys on second base in the 10th inning and beyond, and that's helping games go a little bit faster, and has kind of brought some intrigue into the extra innings when most people would just shut the game off and say, "Oh, all right, I'm going to bed." Yeah. Now you have the time where you can watch the game and enjoy the final. Just know that all right, there's only going to be maybe 1-2 more innings left, and there's going to be runs in the game, and you're not turning the game off.
Yeah, and I personally hate that 10th inning runner on second rule, but I mean, you mentioned you're very analytical when you're doing your betting, but I don't know the exact numbers, but to me it would look like the road team always has the advantage in extra innings because they're right out of the gate getting the runner on base, probably scoring, and there's a lot of pressure on the home team. And I guess if there's live in-game baseball betting, I would think that a lot of the money would head towards the road team in extra innings, Jason.
Yeah, that's interesting that you would say that. Unless you're able to get out of that first inning, if you allow one run, all right, that's okay, because you have the guy on second base with no outs too, you'll be able to get the job done. But the thing is, if you're able to get out of the inning in the 10th inning, in the top of the inning, and not allow a run, well, now you're looking really good because all you need is one run with a guy on second base. So I see where you're coming from when it comes to the advantage. I think that the home team still has advantage there more times than not. Because one, if they allow one run, they still have a guy at second base, so they can definitely tie it up. If they get out of it, all they need is one run. There's a lot of pressure in the bottom half of the inning for the pitcher to perform. So I see where you're coming from, but I still think there is an advantage to home teams in this spot. Of course, there's even more advantage to overs and team total overs and all that kind of jazz when it comes to extra innings. So that's why it's really hard to bet unders, and especially in closer games, or unders for team totals, where let's say it's 2-2 and you bet over 4.5 on the team total, somehow, some way, both teams score one run in the 10th. Then both teams score one run in the 11th, and you go to the 12th inning, you score another run, and you get 5 runs, and somehow you get the over team total when there should have been no chance that you would have got it as the home team. So there's advantage there when it comes to overs in betting. Definitely not for unders, though.
Yeah, I think overs in basketball is probably the easiest bet. But when it comes to football, especially early in the season right now, Jason, where there is a lot of sloppy play, because as you mentioned, there was no preseason games, where do you lean when it comes to doing over and unders in September for football?
Yeah, there's like no data to look at when it comes to football right now, with no preseason and so many different players going to different teams, and rosters looking completely different, with rookies that really didn't get much practice and haven't really progressed or really grown as a player just yet. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at data from last year, but also looking at the first game of the season. Somehow, some way, I went 6-0 in the NFL in the first week. And I'd say it was luck, and it probably was a little bit. Like, I had the Chiefs over 53.5, and they scored 54 due to like an onside kick that the fielder ran down the field to the 20-yard line, kicked that field goal with not much time remaining. But yeah, the thing is, like, there's so many different quarterbacks, changing different teams, like Rivers, Newton. I mean, the list goes on. You have Joe Burrow with Cincinnati, who's a rookie. Still have Fitzpatrick in Miami when Tua probably should be getting the ball. So there's so much going on in the NFL right now. But the reality is, when it comes to over-unders, you just want to look at the defenses that haven't performed last season. If they hadn't performed last season, either they have the same coach or they have a different coach, where that coach probably didn't get enough opportunity or chance to help them grow and improve. So, like, for example, the Raiders and the Panthers, they have some really solid offenses or potential offenses with the Panthers, adding Bridgewater to their, as their quarterback, with McCaffrey obviously at running back. There's a lot of potential there with Robbie Anderson moving there as wide receiver. But the Panthers' defense is terrible. So when you're looking at teams like this, the team total over for the Panthers is always a good look. But also over in the full game is a great look because their defense obviously lost Luke Kuechly, their big linebacker, and their defense was just really not good last season. Same with the Raiders. They've really adapted in their offense. Their offense is really good. But Josh Jacobs he had 3 touchdowns in the last game, and they also had Marcus Mariota as the backup to Carr, so that's going to make Carr move a little bit more and perform, with a little pressure on him. And they also have a new wide receiver in there. So the overs for those type of teams that don't have great defenses are always great plays.
No doubt about it. Joe, what are you keeping an eye on this weekend, whether it's player wise or a particular game that's intriguing you? Or is there a game that you're definitely not touching this weekend?
So there are a couple of games that I think that intrigue me. More so, I think, in the NFC, because you have the Rams and the Eagles, the Giants and the Bears, and the Falcons and the Cowboys. And I think for early season purposes, if you go to 0-2, now in recent years we've seen teams go to 0-2, able to kind of dig themselves out a little bit and ultimately end up making playoffs. But if you start 0-2, it's a severe blow in terms of your ability to end up making the playoffs. And the Falcons are 0-1, the Cowboys are 0-1, the Giants are 0-1, and the Eagles are 0-1, right? So of those 6 teams, 4 of those teams are 0-1. And in the case of the Giants and the Cowboys and the Eagles, they are all in the NFC East, right? So a couple things jump out, right? The possibility of the NFC East winner being 8-8 or worse is possibly in play this year, right? Imagine all 3 of those teams lose all 3 of those games, which is with the Rams, the Bears, and especially the Falcons. It's a possibility. It's not like it's a very, very crazy thought, right? So in terms of betting, the game that I like the most this weekend is the Packers and the Lions game. And the reason why I say this is because last year when the Lions went to Lambeau Field and they were in this exact spot, it was an early season game on Monday Night Football. And that was basically the game where the Lions season started to ultimately go into a tailspin. And they just, from that point on, they were just never really into the season. They dealt with a lot of injuries last year, including Matt Stafford and his back injury, right? But this game was subject of huge controversy last year, and a lot of people felt like the Lions were robbed in this game. And for every right, what we saw from the Packers last one was pretty dominant. They ended up beating up on the Vikings, and that game was significantly more high scoring than a lot of people anticipated, including myself and Nick. And kudos to Nick. He had the Packers week 1 last week when we did the podcast. That was one of his standout statements. So to me, the Packers right now are -6. I think given what this game was last year and given how the Packers have the opportunity to jump out to 2-0 and including to being 2-0 in the NFC North, that would give them a huge leg up on all these other teams. So I think the Packers are going to come out motivated to rectify what happened last year, to get rid of that taste out of their mouths that a lot of people felt like that was the game that kind of shifted the season for both teams. And we saw the Lions, right? No Kenny Galladay in week 1. We don't know if he's going to be 100% for game 2. Obviously, Adrian Peterson went over to Detroit. He had a solid game. But Detroit, week 1, had a big lead, blew a big lead. They're pretty discouraged heading into to week 2. So there's a lot of factors here where I